In this video, we'll talk a little bit about point of sale security. As we talked about in our first video, usually when these questions come up, we are in Setup, System, Users, and chances are we are either creating or editing an existing user. In my example of Anna Carlson, this is a user that is set up as system-wide. They have sysadmin security. And over here for point of sale security, we're going to talk about what things they can or cannot do. The system security code, that's a choice that affects your menu codes and what you're able to do all throughout Counterpoint. The reason why there's a separate set of security codes for point of sale is simply because there's enough things to turn on or off regarding point of sale that it really does warrant its own section. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Now, the good news is when you're setting up a brand new user, you will not have to go through all the checkboxes that I'm about to show you. Really, when you're creating a new user, you're going to choose probably one of these three levels. You might add a fourth potentially, but typically these three levels of sysadmin, the highest, MGR in the middle, manager, or point of sale, the lowest level. Those choices you're already going to dial in, and at the time of creating a new user, you're just going to choose one of these levels. But let's go look and see what's behind these security codes. To do that, I'm going to go to Setup, Point of Sale Security Codes. And again, I have these three levels. You could have as many layers as you want, but we find this is a pretty good place to start. So in looking at these, we'll start and look at the highest level. Typically, when I'm training folks, there's not much discussion about the highest level, system admin, or much discussion about the point of sale user. If anything, there's some discussion about what is the manager able to do. So let's talk about sysadmin. You'll notice here there's a number of tabs, and I'm not going to go through every single checkbox, but we'll focus on the highlights. So as a sysadmin, not surprised that you'll notice that the vast majority of these choices are checked. And we'll talk more detail when we get to point of sale and manager. But you can see there's things here such as if I'm in the middle of a ticket, am I allowed to void that document? Once I got as far as having a receipt, and am I able to void that ticket? On the line items tab, you'll notice there's things such as, am I allowed to edit a line? Can I override a price? Can I go below a minimum price? We have something over here called allowing sale lines, return lines. We really probably want those turned on for everybody. Sale lines just means, can I ring something up on the ticket? If you uncheck that, your users won't even be able to ring up a ticket. So typically we leave those checked. There's something called item prompts if you are prompting for descriptions or other things, and this decides whether or not this particular security level is allowed to do those things. On the total tenders, typically most of these are going to be checked for a sysadmin, and we get to orders. Again, not a surprise. Highest level is going to be allowed to do things such as allow order lines, edit orders, take deposits, view order history, print orders. All those things make sense for sysadmin. If you do carry layaways, then similar choices for layaways. For touchscreen, I will encourage you to leave all these checked for all of your users. These are all features that are needed to carry out standard transactions. If you have stored value cards, there's some choices here. A lot of our customers typically don't have stored value, but if you do, here's where you get to dial in some of those settings. So that's the highest level sysadmin. Let's go look at the opposite end of the spectrum. We'll talk about the point of sale user. And this is where, if we are bringing on a new customer live, we will tend to spend some time and talk through these choices. People usually are pretty interested to make these choices. So for example, your standard point of sale user, if they started a transaction, would they be allowed to void that if they made a mistake? Would they be able to bail out? That's what that first choice is. Some folks say no, so that's a choice that you get to make. Once you get as far as having a receipt, is the user allowed to go back and void that? For a lot of folks, that's oftentimes restricted to just managers, but this is where you get to make that choice. No sale, that's the ability to open or close your cash drawer. And again, that's a choice you make whether or not your point of sale employee is allowed to open the drawer. No sale. Reprint a ticket, and that should be self-explanatory. Change the sales rep, change the tax code. That should make sense. Most of these, I think if you look through these, you'll have a pretty good idea as to what things they're allowing or not allowing. So if you're ever wondering, you're in point of sale and someone clicks something and it's not allowed, or it asks for a user override, it's probably because it's a setting somewhere in here that has been unchecked for whatever security code that person's in. On the line items, for a point of sale user, you can see things are a little more restricted here. Typically, yes, they're allowed to edit lines. Typically, yes, they can edit prices, not always, but in this case, that's set up. But you might limit things like they can't go below minimum price. You might say some things like they can't mess with tax or change taxable statuses. These choices, typically we want to leave enabled. Otherwise, they're going to have a tough time doing their job if they can't ring up lines or do returns. For our totals, this person is not allowed to change taxes, reissue change, but we are going to allow them, if you took a couple payments and you needed to kind of say, I need to do over, you clear those, chance to re-ring a ticket. Orders, if you allow orders, typically you'd need this person to be able to do order lines, back order lines, special order lines, edit orders, and take deposits. But maybe you wouldn't let this person do deposit refunds. They might be allowed to pick and release orders, but you may not want them canceling orders. Typically, you'd probably want them to be able to print orders. That's pretty common. Layaways is just very similar. I won't go through these. They're really the same choices as orders. And then we get to touchscreen. As I mentioned before, you really do want these checked for everybody in order for them to do standard sales. Lastly, we'll take a quick look at MGR. And in this case, you can see in my sample company, an MGR really leans towards the side of sysadmin, where this is the person Saturday morning. If there's an issue or they're helping someone at the register, in this example, we've got them enabled. They can pretty much do everything so that the owner doesn't get a call Saturday morning. So that is just a very brief overview of the point of sale security choices. And as always, if you have any questions, please check us out at lparetail.com. Thank you.